retired seminar. But my name is Tony Wenzel, and it's indeed an honor to stand before you here this morning to address such a fine bunch of veterans and your spouses. Before we get started this morning, I would like to start the seminar with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Please stand if you are here. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before I go any further, I would like to say that after this seminar, I'll be stepping aside. Sad news for me. Chris Bonberg here has been my assistant for some years now and will be taking it over fully. I really enjoyed helping organize this operation and look forward to the seminar every 6 months. But I have just turned 80 years old, so I guess it's time. As my brother Kenny used to say, had I known I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. I will now turn this over to the next generation. I thank you very much. Before I go on further, so I don't forget, I see some of my past commanders here today and supervisors. General Jerry Lang was my commander in 1974. He came as a second lieutenant. I taught him everything, no. But he worked his way up and now two-star general. Kel Brumba's here, Fred LeBlanc, my supervisors, Bill Benson, Jack Kane. I want to thank you for all you've done for me. You really were good. So the next generation is where?
Wait a minute.
I'll be one of your MCs for this morning. I'd like to start off by introducing Lieutenant Colonel Steve Hall. Call him the Deputy Commander at Camp Ripley, but he's, I know him as the Second Vice President of the Commander's Own Chapter of the 34th Infantry Division Association. But Steve, if you'd like to come on up and give us a roll, I'd appreciate it.
Good morning. On behalf of Brigadier General Cruz, I'd like to welcome you back or to Camp Ripley. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Steve Hall, I'm the Base Operations Manager. So basically, I run the resort. That's what we kind of look at this way. Is this a resort for live ammunition? So, a couple of things. So, in regards to Camp Ripley, we've had our busiest year in 5 years. So, for us at Ripley, that's a good thing. It's almost, it was actually a normal year, really, but we had been slow for so long. And that pandemic had a little something to do with it. We had 540,000 service members come through the gates this year. 430,000 of them came through just this summer. It was kind of weird because I get briefed every morning and hey sir, there's 6,000 soldiers on Camp Ripley right now, and I drive around Katoma and I didn't see any of them. They were all down range. A lot of the units in the military have gotten back to the basics, where you come to Camp Ripley, you stay here for 2 to 3 days, and then you go down range for the 8-9 day field problem, and then you come back. So it's kind of weird. But then you go down range and they're everywhere, all over. So it was really good and reinvigorating for us at Camp Ripley and for us that are getting a little older to see those basics come back to the military. A couple of updates on construction. So Area 5, if you were here last year, you probably saw a great big huge pile of dirt. Well, that pile of dirt has now been leveled, and we started building that battalion headquarters building, along with the longhouses. So the nostalgia of the tin huts are going away, and we're replacing with these longhouses, which hold about 200 packs. So Area 5 is our first area that we're going to renovate. And then we'll look at Areas 3, which is the other tin hut area, and then what used to be commonly referred to as like the hog barns over here in Areas 21, 22, and 23 is renovations down the road. The fire hall, so we have a full-time fire department on Camp Ripley, but they never had any dedicated space. So this last year we had a ribbon cutting ceremony in our fire hall, or our firefighters now have a designated fire station. The Mercy Vehicle Operations Course, called the racetrack, it's about 4.8 miles wide. It's right over to the north of us. We paired up with Emergency Management Services in Minnesota to create what's called the Joint Emergency Response Training Center. And what that does is it allows fire departments and other installations around Minnesota to come here and simulate fires, tanker spills, or just derailment. So that's going to be a good training environment for all the partners that we have in Minnesota. Sorry, I'm going to deal with the chest cold. I swear that's all it is. So, to the east of Camp Ripley, you see some great big huge pits. Those big pits are holding the retention ponds for Camp Ripley. So we've had a lot of parking lots built on Ripley. So when you go to a hard surface like that, the water has a hard time going somewhere, right? So what we did is we tied our storm drains to those retention ponds. So when we get these big storms and massive rains, the Camp Ripley does not flood anymore. It's kind of nice. Those holding ponds do work. They fill up and they're drains, and it goes right back into our water supply. So that's a good thing. And then one other construction thing that has been completed, and this is kind of the crown jewel of Camp Ripley. So the Camp Ripley headquarters, which used to be an 11-1 where the flagpole is now moved. So General Cruz, myself, and the CSM and our staff have all moved to Nelson Hall. It's been totally renovated. If you ever get a chance, please walk through the building. It's beautiful. And that's where our new home is going to be. And with that, there was a push because the 114th Trans Company, which used to be stationed out of Duluth, got moved to Camp Ripley, which made sense because their equipment is so large. They could barely make it down the highway, so we wanted them stationed here at Ripley. And with that, that was kind of the driving force to push us out of the TAC building and into Nelson Hall. It's a great building. It looks like a garrison headquarters, and we're very proud of the building and happy to be there. So future projects, really not too much. We'll continue to work on Area 5 for that construction to complete. And then we're going to get rail spurs. That's a big deal for us with an Armored Brigade combat team here. Right now, when they rail all their equipment off of Camp Ripley, their Bradleys, their tanks, and everything, to turn those rail cars around, they have to go up to Staples, turn them, and bring them back. Well, with these rail spurs that we'll start building this summer, we can do that right here at Camp Ripley and save a ton of time and man hours. So that'll be a great project that you'll see coming up in the future. Training-wise, another great thing that is kind of happening towards Camp Ripley, and we're kind of proud of it, is we've got something that a lot of installations don't have, and that's cold. We've got cold and we've got snow. And if you've watched anything in the world, we're not fighting in the deserts anymore. And some of our active duty partners are picking up on this and really focused in on Camp Ripley. So we have a Navy and dive teams that come to Camp Ripley now. They do salvage diving and safety diving. They'll cut holes in our ice and practice that as well. And we also have an Air National Guard unit that comes out of Kentucky to come up to Ripley to ensure that their equipment can handle the cold weather and operate properly. We think there's going to be a big future in this, as the Antarctic is kind of diminishing a little bit. There's a lot of resources that are available. We need to get ready for the cold again. The new defense strategy came out and talks a little bit about winter. So we're hoping that Camp Ripley can go back to the old days where we used to have winter warfare training and things like that. So we're really driving hard on that and aggressive that we are competing against some other installations. We want to be the home of winter warfare training, and we think we've got a good shot at that. And then last but not least, to try to get us back on track a little bit, Norwegian exchange. So we've had an agreement with Norway now. This will be the 50th year. So it's a big year from Minnesota. We're going to celebrate our 50th year with the Norwegian exchange. So the Norskies come over here. They bring about 100 packs. We bring 100 over to them. We do this reciprocal exchange. So it's a big event for Minnesota. The Queen, if you saw the news, was actually in Minnesota last week and talked greatly about this, and he really appreciates this program that we have. And so we're going to focus on that this year in February and have a great big celebration. And with that, that's really the main updates for Camp Ripley. Are there any questions or anything else you saw in Ripley that you'd like to bring up to me? Yes, ma'am.
Do you need anybody for the host buddy weekend for the Norwegian exchange? You got a room full of it?
So the question was, do we need anybody for the host the buddy weekend? I'm looking at my warrant officer in the back of the room.
On our distro, but typically we have the same group of families that come back and want to host the group.
All right, so we'll wait for the announcement to come out, and those that have hosted in the past get first dibs, and then if we need additional partners, we'll ask for that. Yeah, it's a great opportunity. There's 30 youth that'll come. And what this youth program is basically, it's kind of a recruiting event for Norway. They'll bring the youth over here and get them kind of exposed to the military, and with that, we'll give them a weekend where they go and hang out with a Minnesota family. So it's a great event. Yeah. Excellent. All right. Hey, a lot of good booths set up around here today. Please take the time to talk to these people, and they've got a lot of great information, and I really hope you guys have an enjoyable day. So with that, thank you again for being here this morning. Appreciate it. And then one more note, Tony, if you could come up here real quick.
Oh, is he in trouble?
You might be in trouble. We'd like to have you go for just a second for all your years.
All right, I'll do an attention to orders, but when you stand up, if you're able, feel free. Anthony Wenzel is being presented the Public Service Commendation Medal. Anthony has been a driving force in the success of the retirement seminar since 2007. He has evolved an informational gathering event into a regional military retiree seminar. Anthony works for veterans, the community, and has enriched all of our lives through his caring for his comrades over the years. Signed, Brigadier General Lowell Cruz. Very well deserved, Tony. All right, most of you should see on your table, there's an event coming up at the Falls Ballroom on the 10th. So if you're interested, it's for World War II, Korean, and Vietnam veterans. So if you know somebody, if you have a relative or something, go ahead and sign them up. You do have to make a reservation just so they know how much food to cook. But once again, Thursday, November 10th, there is an event coming up. More information on your table. Also, Coburn's is doing a meal on the 11th from 11 to 7, and I know a lot of people get emails or other stuff that comes out on free meals and other things for veterans, so just another opportunity for you. Our next speaker coming up will be the Minnesota State Cemeteries, and that will be Michelle.
Good morning, and thank you all for inviting us over here for this. My name is Michelle Borka. I work over at the Minnesota State Veterans Cemetery. I've been there for about 16 years now. So I'm taking Eric's spot today because he had a prior commitment. So he did give me his notes, so he helped me out a little bit because I was not prepared for this. So I'll give you the best thing I can, and it'll be brief because we do have some more committal services over there going on this morning, and with our construction going on, we are working underneath the committal tent outside. So with that being, just a little bit of information about the Little Falls Cemetery itself. The Little Falls Minnesota State Veterans Cemetery was the first state cemetery established, and it was established by local veteran services and politicians when it first opened. So thank you all for that, because I'm sure there are a few people in the room today that were a part of establishing that state veterans cemetery. Currently, we are entering a little over 500 veterans, decedents, including some dependent spouses and even some dependent children with specific qualifications for their internments. Currently, we have about 9,500 decedents, veterans, and spouses interred into the cemetery as of this point. Being a lot, and this is one thing he asked me to mention to you, that being that there's a lot in the room that are involved, or were involved in the 34th Infantry Division, that there was a monument recently installed at our cemetery on the Memorial Walkway dedicated to the 34th Infantry Division. A little bit about qualifications and things at the cemetery. Obviously, veterans are free. I can't say that they're free because they've earned that place at the cemetery. But there is currently a fee for a dependent spouse, and if a dependent eligible adult child or infant child is eligible as well. That current fee right now is $745. It is subject to change. Right now, they're not allowing us to take a prepayment. If you do any pre-planning at a funeral home, cremation service, we always suggest maybe setting that money aside with them, as a lot of times they will let you set that money aside into a funeral product, which is usually interest-bearing, and that gains interest to help at the time of need, and then the check is then in turn written out to the cemetery. So we see a lot of families, after they do some pre-planning and pre-registering at our cemetery, will then take that information to a funeral home or cremation service, and they will then plan that and set that money aside with them. The difference between the state cemeteries and the national cemeteries, for example, Fort Snelling, is that a spouse is free at a national cemetery, where currently there is a fee for a spouse at all of our veterans, state veteran cemeteries. What we provide at the cemetery, we do provide a choice of obviously casket or cremation. You can also choose to, a lot of questions will come up to us and say, well, what if I want a casket and my wife wants a cremation? Will we be able to be together? Yes, you will be. It's nice that if you do pre-planning at the cemetery, you let us know that, because at the time of need, we don't know that Bob wants to be casket and Stu wants to be cremation. So then we would put the first one in the cremation section, and obviously the next one coming in as a casket would be kind of difficult to put in our cremation section. So it is nice that if you have pre-planned and you know what your choices are, to let us know, because that helps out. Not that that movement wouldn't take place, but it does sometimes make things difficult for families when we have to disinter and reinter a family member to move them to be with the next of kin or the next deceased. You have a choice of being a casket, a casket cremation, a cremation, for example, spouse and husband. So you have that choice, and you also have a choice as cremation. You can choose between in-ground burial or above ground in the columbarium, and that is also a choice of what the families would like. If there are two veterans, husband and wife, we do save the gravesite prior to them, so they are always buried side by side, but you are entitled to your own gravesite. Some veterans, husband and wife veterans, do choose that they do want to be in the same spot. In that case, we still will put them in the same gravesite. First veteran to die goes in the front, second one in the back. So we always keep husbands and wives together. It's just we allow you guys to have that choice. We do provide grave liners for caskets. And right now, we are currently doing dual depth caskets. I know people kind of look at us like, what do you mean dual depths? Well, we do have our dual depths. The first one to go goes to the bottom. The second one, there's a divider. So a lot of people say, what do you mean you're going to stack one casket on top of the other? Well, it's not that case. So that was people that were shying away from things for a while because they were worried we were stacking caskets. That is not the case. So we do, first one to die will go on the bottom, second one goes on the top, is how that happens. But that grave liner is provided for the veterans and spouses, the spouse with the dependent fee. Family member does have the choice as well. If they don't want to take the government-provided liner, they are able to purchase an upgraded ceiling vault, per se, which is in a different section. All of the casket burials prior to, I believe, 4 years ago were side-by-side grave sites, and now we moved to dual to the federal granting that we received. So, and as far as urn interments, we don't require urn vaults, so whatever type of urn you would bring to the cemetery for interment would be going right directly into the ground. Families can choose to purchase urn vaults, but it's not a requirement. So, I think that covers all that. And as far as eligibility, prior to September 7th of 1980, there was no service time requirements. So if you were on active duty for 5 days prior to 1980 and you served that time discharged honorably, you were eligible for interment at the Veterans Cemetery. After September 7th of 1980, the state now requires for interment at the cemetery to have, and it's actually the same qualifications for the National Cemetery as well, to have 2 years of consecutive active duty time for interment to be buried at the cemetery. As a National Guardsman, you have to have served your 20-year retiree, which is most of you guys here, Or if you're receiving a compensable disability, whether it's 10%, that makes you eligible now. That was something that's changed since I started at the cemetery. Back 16 years ago, compensable disabilities were not an eligibility, did not make you eligible for the cemetery. Since then has changed. I know back when Dave was used to be doing the seminars here, a lot of people were told as a National Guardsman, if you didn't have that 2 years in or you're 24 retiree, you were not eligible. So please get the word out that if you know anybody that's out there that is receiving a compensable disability, that they are now eligible for interment at the cemetery. Also, as a National Guardsman, if you have served time on active duty on a deployment under Title 10, that does also make you eligible for internment at the cemetery as long as you've completed that term. So I think that pretty much covers everything. I told you we were going to make it brief. If anybody has any questions or concerns, I am going to leave before the seminar is over, but I can answer a few questions as well. One other thing that I was going to let you know as an update on our other cemeteries. We do currently have one cemetery in Duluth, one cemetery in Preston, obviously our cemetery here in Little Falls, and then one that is due to be open in Redwood Falls hopefully by next year. So by pre-registering, even at our cemetery, and if you change your mind and want to go to another one, this eligibility pre-registration would roll over to the other cemeteries. So,
People ask, are you almost full?
yeah, she asked if people are questioning whether the cemetery is almost full. We're a very long way from being full. Since the federal government had us change over to our dual depth grave sites, it's giving us double the room that way, and they've also required us to drop down our interment sizes for the plots. We used to be 5 by 5. We are now down to 3 by 3, so we've pretty much almost doubled our space. If any of you have driven through the cemetery, you'll see how big it is in the open areas, for example, around the flagpole, some of the prairie grass. All that will eventually be grave sites, and is including all the way around the flagpole and over by General Bessie as well. So, and you have
Will you be doing the wreath laying ceremony this year in December?
we will be doing the wreath program this year.
Okay.
There will be a public event for it. We just don't have all the details on that right now, but yes, we will be doing it, and there will be a public event. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a location where ashes can be spread for somebody who wants to be cremated but not buried? Do you have a location like a tree or an area where ashes can be spread?
Her question was, do we have a scattering garden per se? At our cemetery, we do not have a scattering garden, although we do have the option for families if you do decide to spread the ashes on family farm or elsewhere. There is the option to have an in memory of headstone at the cemetery. So if, for example, somebody is buried at a private cemetery in another state and you want him to be recognized here at the Veteran Cemetery, we do in memory of headstones as well. It's the same eligibility requirements, but yes, we do that. We will even do that for our spouse as well. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I know you provide color guards for burials. Can a local color guard unit do it for one of their members?
Absolutely. His question was if we have somebody at the cemetery that wants a local color guard to come out and do the firing and playing of taps, yes, they are more than welcome to do that. We just ask that we are notified of that before the services start so we can make note of not having the current color guard come out to do that. And I apologize, I did not cover the military honors. Yes, we do provide military honors out at the cemetery. We do have a lot of people in here that actually are a part of that. We could provide them at the cemetery as long as they are not provided at a previous memorial service or funeral service prior to coming to the cemetery. As a veteran is only entitled to one set of honors, you can have a local VSO office do it in your local town and then come out and have the honors with the active duty personnel being there. That can be done, but the active personnel cannot provide honors both at your hometown and at the cemetery. So each branch of service, whichever branch of service you belong to, would be that active duty personnel that would come out to provide provide honor. So we have Marines, Coast Guard, Air Force, Army. We have all of them out there depending on the branch of service. So some days we may have all branches of the services out at the cemetery. Some days we have Army out for all 7 of our services. So we do set that all up. We do not set them up for private cemeteries, although we do have a lot of people that will reach out to us for information on that. But we encourage them to contact the local VSOs for that.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, for those who didn't know, Eric just had a baby here not too long ago, and if you're interested in seeing the 34th ID monument, it's on the Memorial Walk. It's literally just off the road north of the flagpole, so if you go in and make the loop, you can see the big red bulkhead on the side, so a good stop. And if you haven't been to the cemetery out there in Mount, it's a great drive-through because it's so well maintained and it looks so good. And I have that question for Eric all the time. Are you sure this is going to last? And he's like, yep, 50 years is the projection right now. So it's amazing what they're doing out there. One of the things I forgot to do last time is the morning of Tony Bunzel here. The back guy. All right, next we're going to have Chris coming up to talk tech retirement. We'll see here real quick if we can find his.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Murphy. First and foremost, I want to thank all the veterans here for your dedication and service to our country. It has never, and will never go unnoticed. And then to everyone else in the crowd, I want to thank you for your support of those veterans. What is my role here? I am a representative of the Joint Force Headquarters of the Minnesota National Guard in South St. Paul. And I specifically work in the Comp and Benefits branch. And I am the state POC for technician retirements. So I work with Title 32 and Title 5 technicians. The vast majority of the people I work with are current employees, and I help when they approach retirement age or approach the time that they want to retire or get information on retirement. I'm the POC that they come to and speak with. I also put on, I won't say seminars like this, but outreach for information on the contact of the state. I think where I'll be most beneficial to people here in the crowd is, I'm assuming if you are a technician at one point for the Minnesota National Guard, you're probably already receiving your benefits. In that case, I would not be your POC. OPM, with Office of Personnel Management, would be your POC. However, there probably are maybe some in the crowd that didn't qualify for an immediate retirement based off of your time in service as a technician. So at that point, you may have been eligible for what's called a deferred retirement. And a deferred retirement is you would apply probably around the age of 62. So if there is anyone in the crowd that is approaching that and needs some information on how to apply for the deferred retirement, definitely reach out to me. I will be around to the end of the seminar here. But what I can do is I can provide you guidance. I can send you the paperwork that you need. It's a fairly simple process, but it's, I can help you. I can help walk you through that process as far as applying for your deferred retirement. That's kind of my whole spiel. Like I said, I'll be around if anyone has any questions. Feel free to reach out to me. Our office too, if you don't get in touch with me at all today, the HRO office is open to any kind of questions. I do. Yeah, I can provide a phone number. I'll just say it. My direct phone number is 651-282-4233. Thank you for your time.
Next we have coming up is the PACT Act.
I am Karen Jansen. I am from the St. Cloud VA, and I have John Wingus with me. We'll be answering questions kind of after, but to start out, just kind of some facts for you guys is the St. Cloud VA serves each year about 39,000 veterans, and we are one of 30 hospitals still in service from World War I. In 2019, we completed 374 and 911 outpatient visits. This is our main building, our building 1, just kind of a visual. So when you come onto campus, this is one of the first things you'll see. Our campus is very expanded, so we do have volunteers and other people that are able to help you navigate, or if you're needing assistance from building to building. So we'll be talking about a few different areas. So with that, building 111, building 28, those are kind of our mental health buildings. Our main building being building 1, and then we do have some nursing home and inpatient short-term stay also. For those of you that are more rural, we have our Brainerd, Alexandria, and Mount Video CBOCs. They have more limited services, but some of the primary care services are there. Other service offered at the St. Cloud VA are going to be primary care, specialty care, long-term care, dental, vision, residential treatment, and mental health. A common one that we get asked is about our mental health treatment services. So the residential treatment program, that can be a variety of different lengths. Some of the most common things that are covered on those are going to be the chemical dependency and also mental health. So we do have a acute psychiatric unit that is more of a short-term stay. Some of those would be for detox or for other mental health crisis. Not only do we serve veterans with mental health, family services, counseling, and other services for outpatient. A few more specialty services: urology, podiatry, optometry, audiology, outpatient surgery. So we are not a full-scale hospital, so we are limited on what surgeries we can do, but colorectal surgeries are probably the most common that we provide, ENT and pulmonology. So to be eligible for care, basic guidelines is going to be active duty for 24 months after 9/7/1980, and then also if you're before that date, it would just be 1 day and an honorable discharge. For our National Guard members, it is going to be the Title 10 fulfilled and then an honorable discharge. How to apply for care, you can do it online with your veteran service officer or stop in. And the main building, that building 1, is going to be where the eligibility office is located, and they can help you register.
They have a disability of 10% of income.
Yep. So we'll, I'll kind of go through that briefly, but yes, so 10% or greater service connection automatically makes you eligible for care. So one thing we do need when you come in or apply is going to be your DD-214, and then we just have you fill in a short form that's going to have your name, address, those types of things. You submit it, and then we will give you a call, letter, and follow up with you. So like you guys were saying, there's different priority groups. So priority group 1 is our 50 to 100% service-connected veterans. So they are not going to have any co-pays, any medication co-pays, office visits. They are travel benefit eligible, so compensated for those visits. And then they also, the veterans who qualify at 100% rating are eligible for dental coverage. So that is our priority group 1. Priority group 2 is going to be our 30 to 40% service-connected veterans. Again, no office copays. This category, you may have medication copays depending on income, and you also are eligible for travel. So priority group 3 is our 10 to 20%. You are eligible for travel, but just for the service-connected visits. And then you would not have a copay again for office visits, specialty visits, but possibly for medication. Category 4, no copay or office visits again. Priority group 5 no copays again. Priority group 6, moving to that, that's our special eligibilities. So our Agent Orange, Camp Lejeune, those eligibilities are going to fall in that category. An important one for our combat veterans, the 5-year window, you would be placed in the priority group 6, so you're automatically from the day you're discharged eligible to get care. Priority group 7, that does go on your by your household income you qualify for. And then our 8E, so that would be, they recognize that you have a service connection of 0%. So you would only be able to be seen for what you're service connected for with that rating. And then 8G, unfortunately, that would not be eligible. So the new thing that has rolled out is going to be our PACT Act. It deals with toxins and other environmental exposures. So what is the PACT Act? It's a law that expands on the burn pits and other toxic exposures that veterans may have been exposed to. So there's going to be 20 more presumptive conditions that are going to be added to that. So they will include a bunch of different eras, and we'll show those coming up. There's new stuff coming out daily on that, so always feel free to reach out to us. So some of the chemicals, air pollutants, occupational hazards, radiation, and warfare agents are some of the things that this new PACT Act covers. So some of those things would be the burn pits, Camp Lejeune water supplies, pesticides, oil well fires, also nuclear weapons testing, and uranium. So veterans who do not wish to enroll but wish to be seen for an environmental exam, that is an option for you. So just because you don't want to receive care at the St. Cloud VA or another VA doesn't mean you can't get that exam. So every veteran who is enrolled is able to be starting November 8th this year for a screening. So, and they would do follow-up screenings about every 5 years. They have a list that's been published. Here are some of the areas. The Agent Orange locations are Laos, Republic of Vietnam, Thailand, Cambodia, Guam, and then there's certain dates that falls into. So we're definitely able to check those too if you have questions. Airborne hazards and pathogens. So that is going to have Afghanistan, Iran, Djibouti, Egypt, Iraq, Jordan, Kuwait, Oman, Lebanon, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Somalia, United Emirates, Syria, Uzbekistan, Yemen, and then all the airspaces above those. So that would be November 12th, 1998 to the present. So a little bit more recent, and that is one of our newer part of the PACT Act. So filing a claim, we do have a site that is listed up there, but we also can give that out to you since I know it's kind of hard to see up here. And then also your VSO. So the other thing would be if you've already filed a claim, but it was not approved, we do encourage you to file again to see with this new PACT Act if it would be covered. And then also there's those 20 new conditions. So, and if you have more questions on that, John and I will be over at the booth, even after if you guys have more questions, since it is kind of a case by case on where you served and those type of things. So, just quickly, Lori, my co-partner, could not be here today, but our information, I also have cards at the table. If you guys do have any questions or concerns, let us know.
Thank you. By all means, please get over there at some point. You know, it's great to get this, like I said earlier, the generic information that kind of tells you what you need to look for. But I've known from a number of different briefings and stuff, everyone has that little specific questions, and a lot of times it sounds like a yes or it sounds like a no, but when you start putting the other variables with it, it may change the whole conversation. Next up will be Luke talking about the post 9/11 service bonus. So.
morning, everybody. Like I said, my name is Luke Johnson with the Minnesota Department of Veterans Affairs, and just come to talk to you and give you a brief overview of the post 9/11 Veteran Service Bonus. So what the service bonus is, we talk about the MDVA's role and kind of the history of service bonus and war bonuses, some of the eligibility and residency requirements, and the 3 different bonus amounts. And we'll just show you kind of our application page. It has some of our frequently asked questions, some links, and a QR code on our 3x5 card that I've got a couple stacks over here with that scan the QR code, brings you right to the web page where you can get access to the application portal. History of some of the war bonuses, what they've previously been called. This 9/11 one is called the Veteran Service Bonus, but MDVA has been awarding service bonuses for veterans who served America's war since 1919, after World War I through World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the Persian Gulf, and now the global war on terrorism. It's a long history of awarding these war bonuses and service bonuses. And as you know, this year the legislature passed the first ever Veterans Omnibus Bill, which collected everything veteran related into one bill. And within that bill was funding for the post 9/11 Veteran Service Bonus, which included $24.8 million to distribute these 3 different bonus amounts to those that served during the post 9/11 global war on terrorism. It's available for veterans that served from 9/11/01 to 8/30/2021 on federal active duty, and you only have to have served 1 day during that time period. And not only is it eligible for veterans, but it's people if they're still serving active military service, or beneficiaries of individuals that were KIA or passed away due to a service-connected disability during that time. I'll get into that a little bit more as well. Some of the basic eligibility and residency criteria. You can be a current active duty service member that served between 9/11/01, 8/30/2021, or veteran of federal active duty, other than active duty for training, served during the time period. And AGR and Title 32 orders, unfortunately, are not eligible. It has to be that federal active duty Title 10 orders. Do not have to serve in theater. You could be serving stateside, but as long as they're Title 10 orders, it makes you eligible for the bonus. Also eligible for beneficiaries, like I said, of KIA and those individuals who passed away due to service-connected disability. That has to have happened during that time period as well. You do have to also be a Minnesota resident at the time the veteran entered active duty, which will be annotated either on your DD-214, and there's other ways we can establish that residency if it's not on the DD-214 and you were actually a resident. And you do have to currently be a Minnesota resident, and we establish that residency by a Minnesota ID, driver's license, rent receipt, utility bill, mortgage statement, and establishing residency. And when it comes to beneficiaries that are applying for the benefit, that residency does not apply to the beneficiary. It's based upon the veteran's residency. So if that veteran was a Minnesota resident that joined, and they passed away as a Minnesota resident, that beneficiary could be a Florida resident and still be able to apply and receive that service bonus. And there is a named order to the beneficiaries. It's not a first come, first serve. This is the named order. Of course, the surviving spouse, if not remarried, is at the top of the list. Then it goes to the children of the veteran if there's no surviving spouse, or if that surviving spouse remarried. It goes to surviving parent or parents, sibling or siblings, and then the veteran's estate. And in the event there's similar eligible individuals, like if there's 2 parents and maybe they're either not together or still on speaking terms or not on good terms, we do not have the capability to split that payment in half. It really is a first come, first serve, and they have to figure that out upon themselves. If one receives it, the other doesn't, that's, we don't have the ability to designate or obligate that bonus. We've only seen it once so far, and we're dealing with that accordingly, of course. Character service, you have to have an honorable discharge or a general discharge under honorable conditions. Officers sometimes receive a certificate of honorable service. And in the case of individuals currently serving, we can get that in a few different ways. It mostly is the letter from their command saying that their service is still honorable. To get into the bonus amounts, this slide gets a little tight, sorry about that, but the three tiers, if you will, is 600, 1200, and 2000. And the 600 bonus is essentially if you serve during that time period of 9/11/01 to 8/30/21, and you don't have one of the named four medals, which are the Armed Forces Expeditionary, the Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary, Iraq or Afghan campaign, then you're eligible for the 600 if you don't have one of those medals. If you do have one of those medals, which means that you did serve overseas in country, then you're eligible for the $1,200 bonus, and the $2,000 bonus is designated for, like I said, the beneficiaries of those killed in action or those who died due to service-connected disabilities during that time. The one most common, I don't want to say mistake, but misconception. So there's a Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, and there's a Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal. That's where we see the majority of our confusion is the individual must have that GWAT Expeditionary Medal to get the $1,200 bonus. If they've got the GWAT service, then they're still eligible for the 600. And I go into a little bit extra on that. So there was an additional medal that we've put in a change request to the governor's office to add it to the list, is the Inherent Resolve campaign. That's caused us a little bit of pain. There's quite a few individuals, we've got estimate up to about 1,300 that received the Inherent Resolve campaign medal in lieu of the GWAT Expeditionary or the Iraq campaign. It's not really a long story. That medal does exist. We put the change request in, and hopefully next legislative session we can get that added and extend that bonus to those who have that Inherent Resolve medal solely on their records. So we are addressing that. This is a tax exempt benefit. It's considered a gift or gratuity, so they are exempt from state and federal taxation. And the deadline for applications, or the open period for applications, as we started, July 1 was the start date, but the official start date was actually July 7 when we rolled it out, because July 1 fell on a Thursday before a holiday weekend. We didn't want to open a brand new software system and accept a large volume of applications and then have it sit over the weekend in case we had technical issues, which we somewhat did, but we were working through them. We were building the ship as we were flying it, if you will, with the software program to administer this. We were notified in May that these monies have been awarded for us to administer this service bonus, but we were not given any additional staff or funding to administer it. And so we opened on July 7, accepting applications, and today we're at day 90-ish or so, and we're just shy of 20,000 applications received. And we've already approved over 16,000 of those, and over $15 million have already gone out the door in checks in the first 90 days. We've got 2 years to administer it, so the first 90 days we've gone through a lot. But we also have another change request in the governor's office for additional funding, because we do expect to run out of funds in the next few months if we keep up. We receive about 40 to 50 applications a day right now. Unless we keep that pace, we'll end up exhausting those funds. And the rough estimate of eligible applicants for this bonus is about 40,000. They kind of based their funding off of how the Persian Gulf bonus went, that actually only about 50% of the eligible applications came forward and applied for the Persian Gulf bonus. And MDV ourselves, we originally asked for $44 million and sent it to the legislature, came back with the 24.8. But how they shrunk the funding, but what they also did is they added that Minnesota residency at time of entry into active duty. That was not one of our recommendations. But since they reduced the funding, they had to reduce the amount of applicants, so that's where they added that. And we have also put a change request in for that, but we'll see how those all fall out in the next legislative session. And in presuming that we may get what we asked for to relax that Minnesota residency at entrance and add inherent resolve campaign, we've also asked for another $20 million to accommodate for that. So we'll see how it all falls, but for now that's where we sit in the program. We can accept applications up to June 30th, 2024. This is that stack of cards I talked about. We've got a pile of them over here that I'll leave with Chris, and feel free to grab a few if you are eligible, or if you know anyone that's eligible, take some with you. And like I said, it's got the links or the websites where you can get to review the information, or that QR code you scan your phone, and it'll bring you right to the website. And that's where you can do kind of there's a pre-screening, eligibility type screening. You get in and get to the application portal, and you create your application online. It submits right to us. We process it and send it through. If you don't have technology capability, we do have a paper application that you can get through your CPSO. We just highly recommend. It's much more efficient with the electronic version, but if you do need a paper copy, email myself, or you get that from your CVSO as well. And they'll just submit that manually right to me, and I can got a stack of business cards over there as well. And that is, in a nutshell, the post 9/11 veteran service bonus.